I'm Jackson. I have zero experience with carpentry.
I studied at a school for historic preservation in Boston and learned about how things were built, 250 years ago.
There's a long way to go. I'm nowhere near the top. Not that I thought I was, but there's so much more to do out there.
Welcome back to the Passion for Craft podcast. We actually have a really awesome guest this week. Not on the Zoom call. It's the most special guest we've had here yet. So, do you guys want to introduce him or?
Yeah, we have Jackson Hull with us today.
You're a big
believe
fan,
it or
right?
not.
We'll see how this podcast goes, and I'll let you know.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I walked in today thinking we were going to interview Richard. And I got turned around on. So, y'all said you wanted to interview me. I said there's not a lot of content there because I don't know anything. But, go for it.
Well, I think that about wraps this one up. Well, go ahead and start with the questions.
Yeah, thanks.
No, okay. So I kind of want to know your background a little bit. There's a lot of people out there who know Brent. They know me. They've seen us on YouTube, yada, yada, yada. But not a lot of people know you. So what is your journey? Maybe start obviously you went to high school. What was your plans after high school? Was it straight to doing craft stuff? I mean, I don't know. What'd you do?
It's a great question.
This is a great question.
My banker over here is
wondering about
this as well. Yeah. So out of high school, I had a couple of routes to explore. One was going to Westmont College. One was going to Baylor, which I pretty quickly naysayed. And then the other one was kind of going to SMU. And kind of the different routes there was in the California one, the Westmont route. I was going to try and walk onto their pole vaulting team and go do that and maybe try to do the whole sports college athlete thing, as well as get an engineering degree, because that was kind of what I really wanted to do, was go into engineering. And looking at kind of those three schools, which ended up being my top three. I looked at 10 schools. I looked at a bunch, but ultimately it kind of came down to those three. And maybe I'm putting Baylor in there retroactively because I ended up wanting to go there when I was at SMU. But anyway, I went to SMU because they had a stellar engineering program. And so I was going to do electrical engineering. I did do electrical engineering for 4 years. And so credit-wise, I think I've got a year left maybe of engineering credits that would finish me off in the college thing, have a degree and everything. But God had other plans. So,
Wow.
So originally, I was looking at those three schools, looking at doing student athlete, looking at just going to school at a place where, it was fun. And then looking at more the academic route. And I went the academic route. So started going down that and was working at a summer camp every summer out in Missouri and loved it. And basically, through that, I heard about a graduate program called the Kennecott Institute, where they just do a biblical studies course throughout a year-long period. And it's equivalent of 2 years of seminary. And I was like, I don't really want to go into seminary, but I really want to I'm about the Bible and have a year-long intensive type study.
Awesome.
So that's what I did. And it was really awesome. So sorry, I'm kind of jumping around, but
no, this is great. This is all stuff I wanted to know. I was wondering how you got into the K-Life, which you can get to, but
yeah, totally. Well, I mean, so basically, went to school and ended up loving the summers more than loving school, and I didn't know it at the time, but I definitely had much more of a passion for the ministry that I was doing in the summer than the things I was learning in school. And I loved the things I was learning in school. My freshman year was incredible. There was this robotics project, and the purpose of this class was look what it's like to be an engineer in the real world. And it was amazing. But then you have 3 years of slog to get through to
Yeah.
get to that point, to be the engineer in the real world. And in those 3 years of slog, I just got bogged down and was
You
like,
got
all right,
burned
this
out,
is
probably.
awful. Yeah. I mean, I had a I had a teacher who stared at the whiteboard the entire class, writing equations, talking to the whiteboard. Indiana Jones hat, long ponytail. The first test came out, and everyone in the class, altogether, our average was an 8% out of
Whoa.
100.
High standards.
I got a 16, so I felt
You
pretty
kind
good
of
about
made
that.
the curve go up.
No, the person who was retaking the class got a 75. They set the curve, but it was anyway. So got burnt out. I didn't love it. All the engineering professors were not as personable as Mark Fontenot, shout out, who did that robotics class. So I missed the practical application of what I was hoping to do, and I got lost in the necessary skills point. So ended up loving the summers more than I loved the school years. Made a lot of great friends that did go to Baylor, which is kind of what gives me that affinity for that. And I'm kind of like thinking retroactively, because was I considering Baylor pretty heavily? No, I wasn't. Okay.
weren't.
That's so funny.
It
What are you
is funny.
thinking?
No, it's interesting to hear. I mean, he belonged to Baylor. He would have been a perfect Baylor kid.
Yeah, I would have.
We didn't really see it at the time.
No.
When Christy and I went to Baylor, I was a rebel against Baylor. Okay, Baylor had were much more involved in the Baptist, Southern Baptist Convention kind of leadership. Like there was no dancing at Baylor.
Oh,
And,
wow.
Yeah, and so there was.
And you were the guy from Footloose coming in ready to dance.
He was rebelling against that.
Yeah, I was.
Had your Volkswagen Bug and a cigarette in the hand.
Yeah, it was not pretty. And so we didn't look immediately at Baylor and go, oh, this would be perfect. But it all kind of, the light bulb went off for us, probably a year after he went to SMU. Like, why isn't he at Baylor? This is silly. And so it was a God thing. It wasn't the right place. The path he ended up taking was, a little bit circuitous, but he ended up in the right place, the right wife,
Yeah, I
all
was
this
going to
kind of
say, you
stuff.
met your wife through all that.
Yeah. I'm very ADHD, and so obviously this story is not coherent or making sense. But so went to SMU, loved Kanakuk, and that was what I was doing. Got asked to be on leadership my junior year, and went my junior year to back to camp and loved it. And then my senior year came around, and I had done a study abroad program, NOLS. After my grades started tanking and everything, this guy sat me down and was like, all right, not paying for another semester at SMU unless you can get your stuff together. I think he used more colorful language than that. And I was like, that's super fair, because I wasn't applying myself. I wasn't doing the work that I needed to do.
You just burn out.
Yeah, totally. And so I was like, yeah, great. Let's get a reset. And so he offered up going to another semester, another school, which I think pridefully I was like, I'm embarrassed to do that. I don't want to go to another school and graduate from there. I would rather do this other opportunity. And so anyway, went to NOLS, National Outdoor Leadership School. And it taught me a lot of things that I wish I had learned earlier on, personal leadership. And
just NOLS is a really well-known outdoor leadership school.
they send Navy captains and
they send
Army they send military
NASA
officers
sends
there.
their teams on NOLS adventures.
That's
so
crazy.
Because what his program was, he got sent down to Patagonia for 90 days completely off the grid, and
You did that?
Yeah.
That's
and
crazy.
and they would do things like he can tell a story where it's like, you've got these three people and you need to get to this point in 2 days and you have this much food, and it was near death at times, right?
Well, yeah, it's hilarious. They tell you at the beginning, you are on the most dangerous course, and you're kind of like, oh, cool. And then you're on the thing, and you're like, there's some danger, there's some tedious moments. But as you're with these instructors, we figured out that they had just shut down a Brazil course, and the Brazil course was you can get bit by snakes, spiders. The water's bad for you. There are animals on the loose. Just they were just in the Amazon. Their cookware went out. Their like everything went wrong, and we were like, oh, we're so we're on Patagonia, and then we heard all the stories about Brazil, and we're like, oh my gosh, they were the anyway. But all that to say, it was really hardcore. I can go into a lot of detail here. I don't want to get lost in the sauce, but it taught personal leadership. So it taught like you need to learn how to manage your own stuff because the expedition will leave without you. So if your sleeping bag is not packed and your backpack's not packed, you are now holding up the rest of everyone else and you don't know what's coming. So like you were saying, so it's a 90-day course. The first 10 days are wilderness first aid and wilderness first responder training. So we learn all like the medical expertise that we need to know until a care flight helicopter can get to us. So we know like how to tourniquet, staunch bleeding, and set bones, put splints in, and like carry people out of dangerous situations and all that kind of stuff to get to a safer place. But after that, you go. And so they kind of tell you before this course starts, they're like, hey, you need to be prepared to run a marathon. Like that's what you're training for. And I read that a bunch of times and I started training for the marathon. And the way I trained, Alice, a good friend of mine, is a runner. And I told her how I was training, and she's like, you're training for an ultra marathon. You need to stop right now or your body's going to break down. Because I would run for a mile until I could run for a mile easily, and then I would run for 2 miles. And then the next day, I'd run for 3, run for 4. So I got up to where I could run 11 miles, like, no problem. And I was working my way up to 12, and she was like, stop. You're like, you need to rest. It's not good. So I just kind of stopped training because I was like, oh, yeah, I've overshot the marathon. I'm doing great. And we get there. We go through the 10 days of training, and then you strap on a 70-pound backpack, and then you just start walking. So our first day was 11 miles. It was supposed to be 5, but they read the map wrong. And so because it's student-led. So we've learned how to like do first aid and how to read maps and all sorts of other stuff. And so the expedition leader for the day was like, we're going to go to here. We're like, great. And so it's like starting to get dark, and we're still walking, and we're like, all right. And then our instructor's like, all right, we've got 2 more miles at this point. We can either keep going or set up camp. We're like, let's keep going. And then day 2 is just a nightmare. So, I mean, but the whole trip is set up. You have 10 days of food on you, dispersed among 15 people, and you have another food drop that is approximately 10 days travel time away. So you've just got to get there. And if you don't get there, you don't have food. And we ran into a couple of times where like you had powdered chicken noodle soup, and that was like what our dinner was a couple of times, was like watered down chicken noodle soup and no nutrients or anything like that. So there were a lot of crazy moments, but it was really fun. So that was the first like 35 days. And then the next 35 days was sea kayaking. So it was mountaineering and then sea kayaking. Anyway, really cool experience, but it taught you so much because, you learned how to like lead yourself, and then you had experience like where you were the leader of the day, and you got to lead others, and then you got to hear feedback from the other people on like, hey, when you did this, it was very like a good leadership move. When you did this, it was a bad leadership move. And so you're just like, oh man, very humbling, very helpful, but overall it was an amazing experience. It was a really helpful one. And there's a lot more stories I could tell from that. They're all flooding in my mind right now. But anyway, I got back from that, and so that was January to April, or maybe February to April. Is that right? To May?
January to April. January, February, March.
But I was just in Chile for that whole time, walking through blizzards and next to sea lions.
That's
paddling.
pretty cool.
It was really fun.
That's an awesome experience.
Oh, it was incredible. And it was like, it was one of those things where, pridefully I was like, oh, I don't want to go like to another college and graduate. And then, it's a total God thing where he was like, hey, you can go on this experience and get a reset. And that's how he phrased it. And so I just took it as a reset and just was like, all right, I need to like learn how to be an adult and not make kid mistakes like not trying and not going to class or whatever. So I learned those things there, and it was great. So coincidentally, that was my spring semester of my senior year, and I was at like a crux point of like, what do I want to do? Do I want to go finish out, or do I want to go do something else? And in my mind, walking into summer, because I went back to I got asked to be on leadership again that summer. And so in my mind, I was like, I want to go back to school and I want to finish this out because I love the engineering side of it, and just reflecting over like all the things I got to do out there working with my hands. And I thought back to that freshman year class of robotics where it's like, this is what I want to do. It's really cool. I get to like build robots and code them, and that's so fun. Well, go to camp, and I had a guy come meet with me and say, hey, we think you'd be a really good fit for the Institute, where it's just like this really good program. You study the Bible. Like, sweet, I want to take my faith more seriously. Let's, dive into that. And so I did. And I was like, okay, let me check with SMU, see if I can take a year off of school and then come back and finish, which was my plan going into it. And I checked with them. They're like, great, go enjoy, go do your thing. And it's funny because it was a master levels class, but I had not got my undergrad. So I did the seminary year. It was so great. And then in that seminary year, they did like career guidance stuff. And so they sat you down. They're like, what are you good at? Like, what are your skills that you like rock with? And they had us write down a list. And then I was an intern for K-Life at the time because they require you to do like a ministry internship. So the internship meeting happens later that exact same day. And on the screen, they put up like this list of characteristics. And they're like, if you have these characteristics, we think these make like the best K-Life leaders. I was like, this is like a familiar list. I don't know why I'm like, I've seen this before somewhere. So I like reached in my backpack and I pulled out the sheet that I had written down earlier today. And I mean, word for word, it was the same thing. Crazy. And then they had administrative skills. And I was like, I don't have that one. Everything else, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So I prayed about it, thought about it. I was like, okay, I think God's calling me to go to this. And I told him and my mom, and they were like, I think that's a great fit for you. And I was like, huh. I thought they were going to be mad that I wasn't going to finish my engineering, which I think there's probably a little bit of that, right? Like,
not from me.
Not from you. Okay.
I think she was more concerned that you didn't have a degree at the time. I don't think.
Yeah, I still don't.
I'm not sure she feels that way now, but yeah.
Yeah.
So during you said the robotics thing, was that when you found out you wanted to work with your hands then?
No, he always said it a lot. Like, I knew I wanted to work with my hands, and I was like, great, cool.
You heard him saying that growing up.
About himself.
Yeah.
Like, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting. But I remember like working for you in the summers, I was like shop boy. So I was like pushing sawdust around and, just keeping the floors clean and helping unclog the sawdust sucker. What are they called?
Dust collection.
Dust collection. Anyway, that was like my role. And I remember coming home when I was like 12, working for you one summer. And I was like, that's funny. I never want to work for you. I never want to work.
Wow, really?
In carpentry.
Oh, because you were the sawdust boy.
Well, and also like, I don't know. I didn't see the vision for it. I didn't have like an idea of really what it was. And I think now knowing like some of the client side stuff and some of the like 100-year window, almost said 1,000-year window, but
we'll see, right?
Maybe. Who knows?
It's our goal.
After a lot of those things, I started seeing like, oh, this actually is really cool. And a lot of the things that interested me about engineering, I recognize they apply here as well because it's a lot of on-the-job problem solving. It's a lot of like, let's see how we can make this work, and the idea of like fitting a client to a type of architecture. Yeah. I still know nothing about building, which is funny, but just the idea of being like, oh, you like the Gothic style? Stuff. Let's build you a house that's that fits that, or like there's no much like that's cool. But then also like getting the database of all of those styles, that to me is like the most intimidating part, because I think back to the electrical engineering side where I'm like, all right, I really wanted to do this. I really loved it. But in doing it, I recognized like the tedium of doing it just sucked.
Yeah.
And I wasn't up to snuff with doing that. So anyway, that part intimidates me about the whole thing, but it's exciting in prospect.
So you went and did K-Life in
So
Denver.
I'm currently doing K-Life. So I've been doing K-Life for the past 5 years, but that was why I did it. I was deciding between a couple of different chapters, but ultimately decided on Denver. And now I'm in Denver doing K-Life. I'm the chapter director there, and Yeah. So I will have one more year with K-Life, and then I will come. Ideally, in the future, I would like to work here with Hull, and so.
There's not a chance. No.
But so yeah, there's a little bit of like, you know.
But what I was going to say is like, when did you figure out that K-Live, chapter was closing and that you wanted to come back here, go to North Bennett Street? When did that happen?
I think that's when he started watching my videos. I'm joking.
Well, that's when it was. Yeah, I subscribed to this guy. It's Finished Carpentry TV. Yeah,
no,
I just
but seriously.
Yeah. I don't know. It was a really fun conversation that he and I had, where I guess you'd been reading some book about family businesses. I guess you've read a lot of them since, but
read a few.
I think it was in your head at the time of like, this would be a cool thing to. I don't want to speak for you, but I think it's always been a dream of yours to work together, because I'm just a pleasure to work with. No, I think it's been something where we've always like kind of talked about it, and it's always been like an idea that's been out there. And then we finally sat down like my second year in K-Life, where he was like, "Hey, if you did want to do this, here are the steps that you would need to take in order to make this happen." And he had said, I would want you to go to do some sort of schooling for this. And so I think you would like me to go to North Bennett Street School ideally, which I'm like, that seems like the best hands-on learning, which I've realized is like the best way for me to learn. Experience where it very much interests me, and I'm very excited about the idea of potentially going to North Bennett Street School. But then also he was like, you need business experience. You need to go work for someone else or need to work for a company just to like learn how a business runs and how this works. And so I think jury's still out on how that aspect of everything is going to work together. But
yeah, I think that, the thing is in family businesses, they say that you're not supposed to go right into that business. You should go work somewhere else and get experience somewhere else. And that's what we were discussing. And so the thing in my mind was, you need to bring something to the table.
Totally.
And so,
because it's not a nepotism deal. Like wherever I start, it will not be just
correct.
I'm VP, right? Nail. There you go.
Yeah.
Just because you're my son. But
yeah, so it's you got to earn your way in this world, in my opinion. And so we had said, well, he was in Colorado, so I was like, the University of Denver has a construction management program. Maybe you start taking construction management classes. And so that was part of that conversation. What are you going to bring to this thing if you did want to do this? And so Christy and I were wrestling around with what did that look like? What would be the best skill he could bring to this thing? And ultimately we decided that the construction management thing is kind of another book learning thing, and is not really, as practical as what you'll learn on a job in 6 months, having to manage a schedule and manage a budget. And, you're going to learn on the job much quicker than you're going to learn going to school. And so hands-on fits him. And I think it also caused me to reflect, what is the most important, what is the best skill I have? What is my super strength? And it's the information learning I got at North Bennett Street. It's like if I didn't have that, mindset that this is the way things, used to be built, and it's probably still the best way to build it, versus the way we build things today. That's the piece that I think is the real secret sauce. And so that conversation, I think, started then, but it's continued for a number of years after that, where we just kind of went, well, I don't know. Hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking now. What do you think about this? And this is what I'm thinking now.
Yeah.
So you see the huge value in North Bennett Street really anyone, like even myself as a carpenter, I don't plan to start like a giant business or anything, but I would see the value in going there just because it's going to help you in every aspect of building, hands-on, everything, joinery, all that just knowing that is like you said, like a secret weapon.
Well, we're doing that 1881 Victorian house, and the bottom plate is a 6x8 beam. Okay, that they then mortise the studs into the beam, and we've got to repair the corners. Okay, well, how do you repair the corners? The foundation guy come in and said, well, we're just going to take out those things. We're going to put in new things. And I was like, no. Time out. I go, we got boards that are old growth wood that have been there for 140 years.
Yeah.
And you're talking about taking those out? Why? The damage that you're going to cause to the mortise and tenon of the stud going down into the beam. They're just going to hack that off, and
it solves all.
Yeah, totally. I was like, no, we're not doing that. How are we going to do it? Well, we're going to take old growth beams and we're going to lap them together. We're going to lap joint. We're going to lap new corners in there. Well, where did I learn that? North Bennett Street, right? And so that it's 30 years ago, and that we did that, and here's a way of repairing, right? That isn't this new. Well, take out that. We need new stuff. No, we don't actually. We're actually going to get old growth beams, and we're going to, build this and repair this properly. And so, anyway, I don't know where you get that information except by doing what I did, by going there.
Yeah, and all of those things, like, that gets me just fired up about going to learn there and just be able to work on, because one of the deals is you get to work with a lot of the houses and buildings in Boston and around the Boston area, which are all like the classic Northeastern, really cool, well-built houses. And what a cool play! What a cool ability to learn historic carpentry on historic homes. So anyway, that jazzed me up. When he's like, "What's your super strength? What's your superpower?" One of the things that I think I've learned, or I think I've just seen from a lot of people, and I think I've learned by osmosis, is just kind of how to take something and improve upon it. And I guess I'm not saying this in the right way, but I think my point's getting across. But basically, saw this K-Life chapter go from, or the one I was interning at had nobody in it. And then I came in and watched this guy who was over me take it from 0 guys to like 30 people in half a semester. Just
wow.
Like, wow, that's really cool. And then the guy before him, the guy that I was just a volunteer with, took a chapter of 8 people and took it up to, I think it was like 100 kids by the time he was done with it. So grew that one. And then now I've done the same thing with Denver K-Life, where it's like there were 60 kids there when we first got there. And now there's like 300 some odd kids. Just in like our core base. And so I think I've got this ability to like take something and grow it and make something more out of it. And so I know Hull is already like a massive company, but there are these like fledgling sides of Hull, like the 100-year window, and potentially future 100-year door and other things like that I think I have a skill set of taking something small and growing it in big. Or just, adding on to something.
I think the other, I agree, you do have that. I think that the other thing that I thought, as far as that I learned about K-Life, was that,
it's like it's a client simulation. It's
it totally is.
I was thinking that while you were explaining.
Literally.
Is there a tougher client than a mother who's mad because her son's been, bullied or something?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That they're coming to you going, what going on here? What have you done to my?
Right.
And you have to calm them down. You have to explain what the thing is. You have to go find out what's wrong. You got to fix a problem right there.
Discipline the others.
Yeah, and so there is. But he's got a board he's got to answer to, right? Clients you answer to, and so he's got the angry client. He's got the patron client. He's got these. He has had to deal with. He's got leadership issues, right? He has 3 people working underneath him.
I have 3 people working underneath me, and I have 40 volunteer leaders working underneath them as well. So
wow.
We've got a sizable operation that we
he's learned skill sets that will dovetail perfectly into the challenge of
any industry.
Of
really.
any industry, right? Of taking care of customers.
I do think more than all of the like growth ability, I think those were like stuff that I learned innately, but I think one of the things that will complement Hull really well is just the interpersonal leadership things that we've learned just through different things. And I don't know what I'm allowed to bring to the table at what stage I will be able to implement some of the things that I've learned. Because obviously when I come on, I'll just be an employee there, but I'm going to try my best to work up to a position of leadership to where I can hopefully implement some of the things like just inter-team conflict stuff that I don't think it needs, but I think has been ultimately beneficial in my field, which is super
Well,
helpful.
I mean, I am looking forward to that. I mean, that's not my skill set at all, right? I'm a hands-off manager. I just, go do your job, call me if there's a problem.
Yeah,
right?
you know
what
to do.
Yeah, you know what to do. And so,
and I'm sitting here and I'm like, no, that's one of the styles. Like you can, anyways, I've been training away where I'm like, oh, no, that can be leveraged really well if you only do X.
So I guess what I was going to say is that, I am I'm looking forward to the energy, right? And because I'm 57, right? I'm getting to the tail end of my career, maybe 15, 20 years left, and so I look forward to someone coming in and reinvigorating it. Windsor, Craig Flynn, he took over his dad's business when they were, a West Coast, fur molding company, right? Mm-hmm. And he got into their business and looked at, the board market, right, and the Windsor board and all that stuff, and really developed something from this framework that his dad had and built it into something really great. So, that would be the energy he's wanting to bring in is something
I can see it too.
that I look forward
awesome.
to, that I'm just like, yeah, look, I don't have the energy to go start things again like I used to. And so as you get older, but anyway.
So how many years do I have left to start things before I
would say like
turn into an old fart?
mid-30s, you start to feel it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're starting to feel it?
Yeah, I just started to feel like I don't want to do that. Like,
how old are you?
I just turned 34 Monday.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't remember when I got tired. That's interesting.
I feel like you have to like use that energy young or it goes away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like I can already, it's weird. You do feel it fading away. Mm-hmm. Like just like it's kind of a funny term, but it's like my give a crap meter. Like I just don't give a crap. Like, like I just,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Part of that is wisdom, right? You learning what to care about, learning what matters, learning what doesn't. But I would think you're just at the early things of that, of just starting to go, you know what, hours in the day I'm running, I'm not going to go do that.
It's a really weird thing. Like I remember, I'm going to talk about me for a little bit. And
please,
it's all about you.
jump in.
No, I just remember when my kids were like really young and I was in my 20s, which it's so cliche, but people's, it's true. It's a blur almost. I was working so hard to do stuff. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like I didn't neglect them, but I didn't spend as much time as I wish I would have with them. Right. Whereas like now I'm like, you know what? Forget this. Let's go kick the ball. Like, let's do this. Right. This is awesome. So yeah, it's a good thing to realize. But anyways, so your path is North Bennett Street, and then you want to kind of come here and work.
That's what it's looking like right now.
That's cool.
I would love to go. I mean, we always say we're holding on to it with open hands, right? Like, I would like to do it, but ultimately, what God has is going to be where we go, and we'll pray about all the decisions that we make. But it's kind of funny. I've always had kind of like a 5-year plan. And I just remember like when I was proposing to my wife, I, asked for her hand from her dad, and I kind of like came to him with my 5-year plan. I was like, hey, don't have a degree, don't have like provision, like in the classical sense, but this is the way that I'm planning on providing for your daughter and, all this stuff. And he was like, okay. Right on.
I know I have no money and no plan and no job, but I'm a good guy. I plan to take care of her.
And what do you think? And he's like looking at me like, no, but yeah.
That's so funny.
I think that's like our 5-year plan right now, right? Is go to North Bennett Street and then go apply to work at Hull. And
or you could start another thing called Hull. another competitor Hull.
Just Hull doors and windows. Because he's got Hull historic millwork, right? So that one's off the table. Or maybe I could remake Hull historical.
The 101 year window. Just one up and like the price is right.
So, when you guys are making
these are hilarious. Thanks, Richard.
Where do you guys source your window panes from? Just
You're like not going to
theory.
share any information with them.
At Thanksgiving is really
Like
heated.
call your suppliers. Don't talk to Jackson.
Don't. And my son's gonna call you. Hi, yeah, this is Brent Hull. Sound a little younger, I know. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So, here you are, the apprentice on this show, right?
Yes, sir.
And you lay out this plan.
Mm-hmm.
When do you think you'll become the journeyman?
Well, by the definition of that term, I will become the journeyman when I go to North Bennett Street School.
Wrong.
Dang it. Because I'm traveling to another place.
No.
And I'm learning my
You're
skills.
starting your apprenticeship.
Journeyman is when I go to Hull.
When you leave North
Or
Bennett
go
Street.
to Millwork by Design.
Be a good one.
When you
I'd have to come back as
when
a level 9.
you go to Apprentice and
Black belt.
yeah, exactly.
Is he a level 9? A level 9 carpenter? Isn't that his highest level?
I think he said, yeah.
I think so too.
It sounded like I was talking about a
I think he
D&D
had.
term.
I think there was 10s. It was 1
Oh,
through
was it?
10.
1 through
And so, yeah.
Level 10 sounds better. Level 9 sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons term, like he's a level 9 carpenter. Anyone else?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I have no idea.
There's someone in Australia who's like, yeah, mate. Like, that's it.
So, what are your trepidations? What are you concerned or anxious about?
Great question. I think one of the big concerns is going to school again. I think that just terrifies me. And more from a sense of like, man, I just feel like reflecting on electrical engineering and everything that I learned there, it was so awesome. And I learned so many good things, but I wasted a lot of money by going to SMU and not having a degree to show for it. There's a lot of skills that I picked up and a lot of things that I've learned that are applicable and helpful, and I think I'm smarter for it. But at the same time, that is it's one of those things where you look back, you're like, ooh, that just sucks,
So
I think going to school again is another thing where I'm like, am I going to just go waste more money? And am I going to go like...
Well, you got to
now
be
I got
committed, right?
My pot, it's my money.
Now it actually matters. It's your money.
Yeah,
No,
now
I'm
it
joking.
matters. No, but you know what I mean? It's like, wow. Okay.
Oh, it's a commitment. I
Well,
mean,
then
what
on
is it,
top
2
of that,
years?
it's a commitment. It's 2 years. And
You
then
have a child
I have a
now?
child, yeah. And so it's not just, but I will say, inspired by the two of you, I'm excited about my time in North Bennett Street because I do think one thing that I was always like a programs guy. I was always like a front and center on the stage guy. So I do. Case in point, right here.
I tried to sit there. He wouldn't let me. No.
Get out of here. But I do think I'm gonna try and start a YouTube channel. I've already started it. Got my stool video locked and loaded. You guys worked on your stools at all? No, no stool from you, guaranteed. Maybe.
Well, I was on a job site and Brent was there earlier this week, and the stool came up, and I said, I haven't started the stool, and he said, I'm glad to hear that.
I have a loose stool.
It's floating around here somewhere. We'll find it.
It's a loose stool. Okay,
the plan's there. That's all right.
All right. Well, so we'll discuss how we do our stool video, which we planned on doing tomorrow or today. Who knows? But all that to say, sorry, I am planning on doing a YouTube video and doing a YouTube just channel about my time at North Bennett Street School. So I am very excited about just that alone. Is an exciting prospect because I think you guys have some awesome YouTube followings in the carpentry realm, which is just encouraging to me because that's another area that just gives me joy and gives me just sparks life. So doing that and working with my hands together is like a cool fusion. So anyway, but I'm hoping that will monetize and help pay for my family while we're at North Ministry School. And also because it's just a cool thing to do, like to share with people what we're learning and
just document your journey.
Totally.
I want to see it. I want to see what it's like there.
Yeah.
I've heard so much about it. It'd be awesome. Will they let you record and stuff there?
It's a great question. I don't know if anyone's done much with it.
I don't think they'll want you setting up a camera in the classroom.
I mean, I'm not going to sit in the back of the class and audit with,
but no.
Just kind of journal it
Yeah,
type thing.
I'm more thinking like, I've seen like the shop settings, right? And I think setting up like a time lapse in there as I'm like working on something is a very applicable thing that I can just talk through, do like kind of voiceovers. But then also like independent projects that I do work on, I think would also be really applicable, especially like if I have a home shop or something like that where I'm able to work.
And that's what I did. And we had a basement house with a basement, and I just had tools down there, finish class, go down there. So anyway.
And chip away.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking about,
our viewers,
our viewers, our listeners, and kind of what they're learning and what they're going to pick up. I guess I reflect, North Ministry is kind of a cheat tool, right? It's a carpentry hack because I feel like you're going to learn more, because I felt like I learned more in 2 years than most guys pick up in 10 years, right? And so that documenting that journey will be very interesting, I think, for people to see the things that you're learning to do. And,
and that's the channel name. It's going to be called Carpentry Hacks.
So it'll just be interesting.
It will. I'm interested to see. I don't know. I'm inspired by a lot of guys on YouTube. I think you two have really interesting channels, and then William Osmond is another guy who I think does a really good job of.
Very craft.
Yeah, he's very crafty. He's the engineering side of craft.
Yeah.
And that's all my algorithm is like it's like Michael Reeves, William Osmond, and like all the engineering YouTube guys. But I love the way that they do their videos. I think it's very informational, but at the same time helpful, which is same as y'all's, right? Where it's like very informational, very helpful. So hopefully it's a similar thing like that, but it's very practical, like on the job. This is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm doing. Almost like some of your early videos.
Just straight tutorials.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you come back, we're gonna switch roles probably. I'm going back to. You're gonna be the journeyman, because I believe it. I believe you're gonna learn so much there. Mm-hmm. It's stuff that we would never touch,
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and maybe that's the whole key, is just the background. That's what I try to do on my channel. Is just like, look, don't just put a gutter up on your thing. Here's the reason why gutters look the way they look, so that you can figure out how to put it together, right? So you're not just nailing a gutter to the side of the, to the fascia. Right. You are thinking about, why is there a molding shape in your gutter, right? Why? What is that? And then you look back at the old things. You go, oh, gutters were originally made of wood. Gutters were, and so that's what I'm trying to infuse in our building knowledge, and that's what I think is missing a lot. That guys don't understand the history of why we do what we're doing, and it's just become a plastic thing we nail on the fascia, to catch water, and we don't think about it architecturally or historically the way they did.
It's actually really funny hearing you say that, because currently my field is ministry, but every one of my talks that I give, that is usually my like go-to on how to explain like a Bible verse. Is I go to the historical context of it, and it's just really the gears are clicking right now for me, where I'm like, oh, you're interested in the same thing. But also I wouldn't say I'm like classically interested in like the history of gutters, but I'm interested in the history of things. And so I think whenever I go to North Ministry School, they're going to be like, hey, this is this. I'm like, oh, well, why do they do it that way? Well, this is why. And that's really going to fascinate me, because I'm already doing that.
Yeah,
with
there's
like
a lot of aha
applications.
moments there for sure.
Interesting. Okay. Well, cool.
Record as much as you can, because I'm not going, and it'll be kind of a way for us to get in without going.
Totally. Yeah. Free classes online, right? The North Ministry School is it's such a cool opportunity, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm also just excited to see, how things go there. But that is one of the things that gives me the most nerves.
I'm
is going
excited
back
to see
school.
you go in as like knowing nothing.
Truly.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
just
no-
knowing nothing,
well-
but then coming out, I want to see like what you know when you come out.
That's
just
another
cool.
fear, quite frankly, is
The pressure, maybe?
I don't know anything.
Oh, okay.
Like, I feel like I'm going to go in and a lot of these guys are going to be like, yeah, I've like done a little bit of stuff here and there with this. And I'm going to be like, I just came from doing youth ministry. So like, I don't know anything about this.
Well, you know some stuff.
I do know some stuff, but I feel like I get a lot more credit than I deserve because of him. And I do feel like I'm going to walk in but I'm not nervous about asking dumb questions.
I don't give you any
but I think
credit.
I am going to.
Because you've made it known that you don't know anything.
I really don't.
My advice to you, I've been thinking about it, is don't say anything. Just don't open your mouth, because here's the thing: you've learned like architecturally some different stuff and things like that, and you might want to say something. Just nope.
Like,
just be quiet.
You're saying your worry is that I know a little tidbit here and there, and it's going to look like I know more than I know.
Enough to
right?
be dangerous.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting here and I'm going to be like, I am thinking I'm going to ask as many questions as I can because I don't know. Like, I know enough, like, I don't know. It's one of those things where if I'm talking to a marine biologist, I could be like, alligators have 2 eyelids. And then they're like, oh, he knows a lot. But then I'm like, I don't know why. I don't know what. Like, you need to tell me more things because I want to know why that they have 2 eyelids. You know what I mean? That's a bad example, but you know what I'm talking about.
That's actually a good example. I just don't want you to go into class going,
Gothic style.
alligators have 2 eyes. And they go, tell me about it. And you're like, I can't. I don't know anything about it.
I just knew.
I don't want to be like that either. I want to know. I don't know. My mindset is I'm there to learn, so I want to learn.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it.
Everybody's scared there because they don't know what everybody else knows. And so, you're like, you want to know stuff because the teachers are so knowledgeable and you're like, it's cool stuff and you're there because you want to do it.
Yeah.
But no one really knows anything
Yeah,
in
right.
there.
If you're taking that, you
Yeah.
gotta
No
kind
one-
of be a little bit beginner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really, I knew more than you know, but like I had built wood things with my hands and done stuff like that, but I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and there's nothing wrong with not knowing.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well,
Yeah.
they're gonna say, who knows what the piano nobile is?
Do you mean the belletage? Because I know. Yeah, it's the piano nobile, as Wikipedia
Oh,
told
wow.
me. Yeah, it's not noble.
pardon me.
I was Googling, I made the thumbnail for that video, and I was literally Googling piano noble, and I got nothing. I got pianos, literal pianos, and it's piano nobile. And we were probably just saying it wrong.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I know that's how it's spelled. But I'm like, I could not find it anywhere. And I was like, I knew it wasn't a word. And then piano nobile popped up, and I was like, oh, maybe that was. Because I ended up having to search noble floor, and then that was how I got there.
Oh, weird.
Which was funny. But yeah, did you know in England they call the first floor the second floor?
I didn't.
That's what it said on Wikipedia, so there's that. Anyway, can I tell one story from Patagonia before we finish off?
Yeah.
Okay. We had done the mountaineering section first. That was the first 35 days. It was awesome. They prepped us for everything. They taught us how to use crampons and like walk on a glacier and like figure all of it out.
Tampons?
Crampons, not tampons. They go on your shoes. They've got the spikes, the metal spikes on your shoes.
That's
that
what
allows
called
you
a
to walk on-
crampon?
Yeah.
Okay, did not know
You
that.
strap them onto your mountaineering boots, and then you can walk on glaciers because glaciers are super dangerous. But we get to like this point where it's like a midpoint, and it's like we are mountaineering now. Like we are in the danger zone, and we spent about 5 days here because of storms, and we're like, I've got 3 days left to get to, or like we budgeted 3 days. Technically we had 5 days of food, but we had 3 days to get to our next point. And so we're like, okay, we do have to start moving here. But in those like days where we were camped out, training and everything, we had learned like how to traverse glaciers and all that. But as we're learning it, we're like on this like safe part of the glacier, and we're like having a blast. And our teachers are telling us about like moulins, which are these things that are literally ice holes, and they are so smooth because the ice slowly melts and rides across the surface of them down into the abyss of the glacier. So like you've got like 150 feet of ice that is the glacier that you're walking on.
I can't believe you did this.
And there's like
That's
a giant,
so crazy.
and no matter how sharp your crampons are, no matter how good they are, if you walk too close to a moulin, you will fall into it. Like in Ice Age, you know, when they fall into those holes, those are moulins, but there aren't like slides at the end of them. It's not like...
It's rocks and death.
No, it's two glaciers pressed up against each other that are slowly grinding against each other. So if you fall into it, it's like those metal grinders, and you just die. And you are lost forever. And so they're telling us this, and we're like, that day.
I can't believe they let you do that.
I know. Well, I remember.
How old were you?
20.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I
like,
can't
some of the
believe
kids
they
were
let
17.
you do that.
It was crazy.
That's insane.
But so it's one of the days that we're like ice climbing. So like we're using ice picks and we're like having a blast, and it's like, oh, it's like Call of Duty. We're like loving this. And then they like sit us down like, all right, we're going to cross the glaciers next. There are crevasses, there are moulins, and you can die. And we're like all happy that we just go like really serious. So we're figuring it out. So we make our move. So we move from this like little rock that we're on in the middle of the glacier to like the actual glacier, and we're going to summit this peak and then go down the other side, and basically we're at the end of the mountain part. So we start going, and we like get to the very edge of the glacier, the last bit, and they go, all right, everyone needs to pick up 5 rocks with them because your tent can't be staked into the glacier, so you're going to have to like use rocks to stake down your tent tonight. We'll figure it out. So we get up there, we make camp, and then they say, all right, we need to start digging. So we start digging out like all this snow, and we literally dig out like down into the ground an area for all of our tents to go. And so we're sleeping on the glacier this night, and the only thing that you've got in between you and ice is your like little mattress pad. They're like, it's trial by fire, so there's so much information they're throwing at us, but they're like, all right, if you go to the bathroom on the glacier, you have to go like within these certain boundaries that they've set out because there could be crevasses or moulins or whatever. And so we're like, okay, this is like the real deal. We had to cook snow in order to get water because there's no water on a frozen glacier. So we like did that. That's how we cooked our meals that night. We only had like a limited amount. We had a certain amount of fuel that we had. So we're like, water, fuel ratio, how do you balance that? So we figured that out. Then at night, your water will freeze, but that is your water that you're drinking tomorrow. So if you don't want to waste any more fuel, which none of us did, you have to sleep with the water. So we drew straws. Whoa. So I slept with the water that night. Funny enough, it got a leak in it. And so I was sleeping soaking wet with our water thing, just cold as ever. So woke up after a night of no sleep, and we start summiting this mountain. So we're like walking up it, and they're all saying like, this is a place where only 30 people in the world have been, and y'all are 15 of them. And we're just like, what in the...
That's crazy.
I mean, we were in the middle of nowhere. It was awesome. So we summit this mountain, and as we were getting to like the very top... We're on rope teams, by the way. So like if one of us falls down an accidental crevasse, like you've got to rest, and there's 4 people, like you're dangling from a rope, and you're figuring out... one of our guys got stuck up to his knees. It wasn't a bad one, but they did have to arrest. It was crazy. So we get up to this summit, and then it starts blizzarding, like full-on blizzard. Like the snow's coming in, and we are at the peak of this mountain. We are at the highest point of it. So we had to be lowered down by rope teams. Our instructors had to go ahead and make like a stairwell for us out of snow so that we could like safely get down this thing. So all of us are huddled up waiting for our instructors to like go down. They're like belaying each other down to like get this thing. And we like bring one of our instructors over to our circle at this point where we're all just like huddled together, like freezing cold. He's like, how do we stay warm? He's like, do what you're doing and eat sugar. So we're like, great. So we all start eating like our sugar candies and all sorts of stuff, like staying warm, trying our best. Meanwhile, the wind switches. So the like area that we're waiting in turns into a full-on wind tunnel. You can't see here. Like it's just like full snow. You can't see anything. So then one by one, they lower all the groups down. And so we're in the last group. We're 3 dudes. So they're like, y'all are going to be fine. So we're last. We go down this thing, and we're going down like the ladder, the stairs that the guy has made just by kicking his feet into the snow. And we make it to the bottom of it, and there's still like 400 yards till like where everyone else is. And they're like yelling at us, but we can't hear them. And one of the guys barely makes out. He said, I think they said jump. We're like, what? And so we're literally just looking at a 400-yard down snowbank, and we're like at the bottom of the ladder, and they're like, jump, jump, jump. Like, all right. So we jump and just literally slide down 400 yards, like the side of this mountain. And then we like get towards 100 yards out, and they're like, arrest, arrest, arrest. So we like put our little ice picks in, and we're like stopping ourselves. So we all stop. We're all roped in together. And we're like, all right, we made it. And so we start walking again, and
we didn't say jump. We said walk.
No, they said jump because there wasn't any more ladder. We were supposed to slide down the remaining of it. So we get down to the end. Then thunder comes in, so it's starting to thunder, and we're just like, all right, well, we can't do anything. We just got to keep walking. So we asked our instructor later. He was like, we're like, why'd you say arrest? Like we would have kept sliding. That was awesome. He goes, yeah, there was a crevasse like 200 more yards out, so you kind of needed to stop, or else you could have fallen in. Like, oh my gosh. Anyway, it was a crazy moment of just like summiting this mountain. We ended up making it to this like rocky area off the glacier, but that one night on the glacier was insane. Sleeping with water, freezing cold, huddled together in the blizzard. It was wild, but it was super cool.
That's crazy.
Good stuff. So the Apprentice has spoken.
Yeah.
That's his story. He's sticking to it.
So they say. Thanks for watching Passion for Craft Podcast. Join us on Patreon. Get in the Discord. Get on the conversation, and check out some of our other videos there. So
thanks.
Thanks.